So today we're going to be looking at Microsoft Access queries. So I want to begin by mentioning once again what a query is. So a query allows us to search and display data that's in a database in a way that makes sense. So it's kind of we can bring any tables that we have related together, or even queries actually, and be able to do some analysis on, do some like search and filtering to get certain results. We can even do some certain calculations if we like to. So that's what the purpose of a query. That's what it allows us to do. So yeah. So I shall go ahead and open up Access then. You guys got pictures, of course, on the site here, but might as well open up the real thing. Take a look. Pick something old school. Okay. I'll do it first. So when it comes to creating a query, we'll go to the Create tab again, and in the Queries group, and we'll see two different ways to create a query. The first one is known as the Query Wizard, and just like with most things that involve wizards, like we saw in Excel and Harry Potter, they try to make things easier with the magics. So, and then we have the query design. And so the query design is where we'll be designing it from scratch, similar to when we designed the table from scratch. So take a look at the example here. So here I'm still sticking to trying to build that Pokedex, still trying to catch them all. They keep adding more Pokemon, so it gets harder and harder to do. But I have two tables here. One's Pokemon stats. So it has their national ID as their primary key. I know that because if I go to Design View, you see that little key next to it. It has Pokemon, so the type of Pokemon it is. Type 1 and Type 2, it has the heights and weights and their total base stats, because that's what competitive breeder people like to look at. I am not one of those. That's just what I was told. And the second table is all about their Type 1. So I'm only just looking at what were their Type 1s and heights, weights, base stats, weaknesses. One thing to know, Pokemon are very short. So the new games really show that scale-wise. We always thought they were a lot larger, but they're really short, really, in general. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But these two tables do have a relationship based off of Type 1. If I actually look at the other table in Design View as well, it might be a little easier to see. So we're going to look at the connection, though, between the Pokemon. So actually, this is not by Type 1. I think someone went in and actually changed the title of this. This is by their type weakness, actually. But anyway, if I go back, you'll notice that under my Pokemon, oops. Oh yeah, this got changed up. That's right. I was trying to play with this the other day, try to make multiple ones. But there's supposed to be a connection between my Pokemon. This name here is not correct. I have to fix that. But there is a relationship between these two items. Got deleted. Ah, well, looks like I didn't save it. This is why it's important to make sure that you save every part of your database. So some things got deleted here, but I'm gonna add that back again real quick. There it is. I didn't need the relationship. I do want to show it. So, okay, cool. All right, there we go. So they're connected by the Pokemon's name, and it brings over everything from the first table. because based off the relation of the Pokemon's name. So I can see it all together in one. And so this is not a one-to-one relationship because the Pokemon name in the Pokemon stats database is just a field. It's not the primary key. So it's a one-to-many relationship. Okay. So that's just kind of quickly kind of reviewing what we went over before. So today, like I said, we're gonna look at queries. So if I go to the Create tab in the Queries group, we have our two different options. I like to start off with the Query Wizard because it's usually the easiest for people to understand because, again, wizards makes things a lot easier. And so we got 4 types that are found here. So the first type is the simple query. So just from the name, you might realize that it makes making a query very, very simple. And it is simple. It's just simply saying, what do I want to show up in my query? What fields do I want to see from which tables or queries? And that's it. Cross-tab query kind of lets you put it in a spreadsheet format. It allows you to kind of see certain records to the side with the different field names to the top. So you can kind of see like where they connect in the middle. This is a little more complex. Not really though. It's pretty simple to create. Oops, not meaning to do that. Cancel. The find duplicates query does exactly what it says. Look between 2 to see where do you have duplicates, and then it returns those duplicates in the query. So where you have duplicate records. Find unmatched queries. So it looks for if you give it more than one table, it looks to see where they do not have connections. So Amber, specifically thinking about you with the Kingdom Hearts because you have multiple games on there, and that might be a good one to see. Who's not in all the other games. But anyway, where they have no related records in another table, so it might be important why you build that relationship. But where they have no other records, it'll return that as a list to you of which ones are unmatched. So this gives you unmatched ones. So as you can see, the query wizard is actually pretty easy to understand because it even tells you, like, just from the name, you can kind of understand what it's going to return to you as a result. We are going to stick with the simple query though for today, just using the query wizard. And first thing we have is we get a list of all our tables and queries that have been created already. And from these, we can decide in a new query, what do we want to see? Like, what do we want to show up? For instance, maybe I don't care about the national ID. Maybe I only want to know the Pokemon's name and its types. And maybe I don't care about its white and hate. I want to know its base stats. But from the other table, maybe I want to know its weakness. And let's see here. Maybe I want the weakness to come after the first type so I can see it directly. And I want the second type to come after that, and then the base stat. As you notice, I can click these arrows to send something back over, meaning it gets rid of it from being a selected result within my query. And if I wanted to, I could even gone to my stats query, which doesn't. I'm already using all the information, so there's no point in that. But it listed things by the stats first, so on and so forth. But I just want to show you that if you had a query in it already, you could also build from a query. So you can build a query from another query. It is definitely available to do so. But the query is not a table. It does have a collection of data though, but it's been filtered from other tables. So, but that does make it easier sometimes when finding certain results. For instance, if you wanted to, you need to do a search for like one specific item, but you have multiple things with that. Because like with Pokemon, maybe I want to look at all this Pokemon with stats higher than 500, base stats higher than 500. So all my legendaries are pseudo legendaries. So I can do that, and then I can make another filter for things that are actually legendaries and things that are not. And then I can keep making filters from that. Instead of having to start all the way from the first one with the table, I can now make my search faster because I have a query that made my results already smaller. I can keep making queries from there. And so that's a common thing that people will do when creating queries. They'll create a query and you name it so it's easy for you to know which one to use from. And then you can make queries from those queries and then get to your results faster and smaller. So anyway, I'm gonna click next. So from here, it's gonna ask us what type of query do we like? A detailed query. So this shows every field of every record, or a summary query. And so what a summary query will do, it'll allow us to summarize some of the information that's there, such as let's count how many Pokemon we have in this result, or let's take the average of a certain field in the result, or let's take the sum of a certain field in the result. Similar to what you all saw when we did the pivot tables, right? When we had that value section. And click so you can see that. Well, what's the sum? What's the average? What's the min? What's the max? Or I can just take just a count of them. That's what a summary will allow us to do. It summarizes the data. Well, how do you summarize it? Using those 5 basic functions I told you that we'll see quite often. Yes, question. Thought I heard someone. All right. So for now, I'm just going to stick to the regular detail one where we can just see all our results. We'll click next, and it gives you a wonderful name. And name usually starts off with, what was the first table that you used? Oh, you used the Pokemon stats table? Well, I'll just put the word query after it. Since that was already one that was created, it just put the number 1 after that. You can name this whatever you want. You just want your query name to make sense based off what it is that you're looking at. And so we're looking at, I'm gonna call it battle stats because I'm looking at their types, looking at their base stats, and I'm looking at their weaknesses as well. Then you get 2 options. You can open it to view it, or you can modify it in query design, which we can get to query design very easily. Just like we got to design view with the tables, we can do the same thing with queries. So I'm just gonna click finish and we'll go to that next. And so lo and behold, look what it did. We got the Pokemon names here. We have their first type, we have the weaknesses to that type, and then we have their second type. And we have all of their base stats listed here. Okay. So yeah, that's it so far. So it pulled in data from multiple tables and listed and grouped it together here. The fact that these are actually in a relationship, it makes it easier for it to tie those together. That's another thing to note. If they were not, our results would look quite funky or be empty, completely empty, because if it can't see a connection between them, it'll just be empty. So this is why it's important to build those relationships, and that's why we learned that second. All right, so just Amber, for example, if you connect all of those, all of your primary keys, I forgot what yours was, if it was the character names, I think it was. If you connect all those, it should make it easy for it to be able to connect across from there. Okay. So let me show you all what this looks like in the design view next, and then I'll show you another view as well. I think that'll be very important. So I'm gonna right click here. I'm gonna go to design view, and let's just see how this was built. In fact, we may build one just to show. And so we show our tables here. We could add queries to as well if we would like to, so we could use that as well. We select what table we're coming from. Then you can, from the drop down, select what field that you would like to use from that table. And then you notice in this 4th row here, we have show. It's checked, meaning we can either show that column or not. So for instance, if I wanted to gather the information for the type 2, but I didn't want to show it, I can click that. And if I click run, it's there in the background. That data was collected to be part of this query. However, it's not showing it right now. Okay. You'll notice that there are 2 other things though that are here as well: sort and criteria. So sort does exactly how you probably imagine it would do. It allows it to sort it. So you can put it in some kind of order that you would like to have. So if I wanted to, I could maybe sort by the first types. Maybe I only want to have a Pokemon in my team of 1 type. If I do that and say ascending order or descending order, of course, those both options. Got our bugs first and fire grass, psychic water. So it's assorted in order, in ascending order. And it's done so every time that this gets run, it will always put it in ascending order by type 1. Okay. Of course, just like I could do with the other table. Oops, did not like that. I could also sort it from here. But this is different because this is just sorting on the result, whereas this is in the background. So it will always be like that. It will always return it that way. Okay. So it's different from just like, oh, let me just sort it on the page, because this will always run. If you say if you add new Pokemon to the tables, when you run the query now, it's going to see, should I be adding these Pokemon to this new query? When you run it again, it will add it, and then it'll sort again, because it's in the background. It's built into it for it to sort this in ascending order. Okay. All right. Oops. All right. So the second thing here is a criteria. And a criteria is just like it says, it's a criteria. It's something that has to be fit. It has to fit in order for it to be in the result. And so, for instance, I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to save this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a new query with the design. And I'm going to use the query that we just created. And I'm doing this so you guys can see the criteria. And this is where I was talking about where some people would create queries for queries. So the first one got me all the stuff I would need about battle stats. This new one is going to get very specific Pokemon to add to my squad. Okay. So, and like I said before, you could choose your table or in this case, we only have battle stats here, your table or your query that you're pulling data from. You choose the field that you would like to have as well. And I'm just going to get each one of these. So I can also double click on these, or I could drag them to it. So whichever one that you feel most comfortable with, okay? And what we're going to look at are going to be only the Pokemon whose base stat is above, let's do 480 maybe. Let's see. There's not that many. Let's just do above 500. That's what I said originally, I think. So let's just do above 500. So I'm still going to sort these in order by their types, because I want to make sure I only get one of each type. And so some of you may be saying, oh, well, why don't we just sort by base stat instead, which we could totally do, right? Just sort by base stat. You say that. I'm going to save this. So notice that if you do it from the query design, you have to actually name it. It doesn't do it for you. Battle stat above 500. So go to here. I'm going to run it. So yeah, it puts it in order, and I put ascending order. I should do descending. Let's go back to the design view. Put descending order on that. Okay, perfect. Don't know why Caterpie's still up top. It's a champ, I guess. It just knows secretly Caterpie is really the strongest Pokemon ever. Those of you that know it, you'll laugh at that. But anyway, so we got all these Pokemon here. And did it not? Did I put that in ascending? I put descending. Oh, that's why. I still had this one on here. I thought I got rid of it. There we go. Caterpie really is the strongest of all. So it put the Pokemon in order by base stat. So I could just say, all right, those that are above 500, I'm gonna cut it off right here. So I'm gonna keep these 4 Pokemon in my squad. So I could totally do that, right? Makes it super simple to do. Don't have to worry about it anymore. But this doesn't really show a result for all the battle stats that are above 500, right? This is just looking at this one and just sorting it differently. So instead, I'm going to add a criteria to it that literally says I only want those that are greater than 500. When I run that, I only see those that are greater than 500. Right? And I could even at this point, then because I don't have to worry about it putting it in some order, I don't need to sort this anymore. So I can see that they're greater than 500. I could go back to what I was doing before, sorting this by their types. Okay. All right. So this is the real power behind design view. You can decide which fields to show, because at this point, I don't really care what the base stat what the base stat is anymore. I just wanted those that were above 500. So I don't have to show this, but I needed this in order to actually filter this the way I needed to get the actual results that I wanted to search for. I also am able to have this result print out in ascending or descending order. I'm also to specify certain criteria that must be met in order for it to be in the result. Gives me a lot more power with my queries. So much better than just sorting and filtering. This does a lot. I can do a lot more. In Excel, you could do what's known as an advanced filter, which literally does what we just did. It gives you actually have to set something known as a criteria, and you have a database which has a list of all of your data. And then you use the criteria in order to filter on, do an advanced filter as Excel calls it. But that's literally what this is a query. So those of you that have some more experience, more advanced experience with Excel, if you've heard of an advanced filter, that's what we just did. But this is a lot more powerful because I'm able to actually then sort it if I would like to and decide what gets shown. In Excel, I can't do that. I would have to then go in and hide certain columns or certain rows, and then I would have to go in and make my results a table, or copy out my results into a new table, and then filter it, and sort it in ascending order based off a certain column. Be a lot more access, one go. And if I really wanted to, after that, I could have this result go back to Excel if I really needed to use it in Excel. So there's some external data. I could export things to here as an Excel file. We're not going to get into that, but that's just something that I think is good to know. That anything that you do in here, you can take your data results and then send it out to Excel, send it out to a text file if you need it to as well, send it out to a new access file, send it to Word. You can send it to where you need it to use it, or to maybe display it. Okay. All right. So are there any questions so far about what we did here? No?
So to make the query where you're flipping back and forth some fields, we would go to Query Wizard or Query Design still?
So the first one I showed you was just Query Wizard, where you're just selecting your fields and just pretty much walking through that wizard and then hit finish. The one where you're literally building it from the ground up and is the design view. So that's where it'll look like this. You can always do from the wizard first and then just go to design view and then start designing it, making modifications if you would like to. That's always available. But if you know like specific things that you want to have in it, then just do it from a design view, because you can even, one other thing you can do with this is, back to design view, is maybe I want to change the order of stuff that shows up here. Maybe I want to see the weakness second. I can literally click and drag these over now. So now the order is Pokemon, type 1, type 2, then the weakness. And then base stats is there at the end, but it's not even being shown. Okay, so I'm just want to really show you that design view is where you have more power, and this is where you will want to go, or you'll want to use at some point. You can start from the wizard like we did here. You can start from the wizard and build a query, nice and simple, but it will give you everything. If you want to be more specific about what you want to show in your results, you'll have to take it to design view. Okay, so completely up to you which way you start. Most of the time, I tell students, because it's your first time, I would start with the query wizard, get the fields you want, and then go to design view and play around. Because it'll be simple for you to go back to query wizard and remake what you did earlier, right? But before you start, just like with everything, you want to first understand what it is that you want to show. What is it you want to analyze? Like I said, I wanted to be able to look at all the Pokemon. I call it battle stats because I'm looking at Pokemon I want to take in battle. And I wanted to look at the stats that about where the base stats were above 500 specifically. So my queries were very specific for what results I wanted to see. What is it that I wanted to analyze? What is it that I wanted to know about? So I completely understood my problem or my task. Then I planned for it. I knew what fields I wanted to have in it. So I got those fields. And then I knew from there, I had to also plan out what was going to be in sending. What were my criteria going to be? Okay. Then we did it. Then we coded it, so to speak. I actually will show you what this looks like in code, because there is some code going on in the background for this. And then we're able to see our result. And if we had any issues, we can go back to design view and see where things went wrong and make corrections. So I'm kind of going through that programming development cycle again, because it really is a part of like everything that you do. So if you think in that, if you just begin to think in that way, it'll make, I honestly think it'll make your entire life easier. You want like in your mind, like, okay, step 1, describe problem. Step 2, I'm going to make a plan. Step 3, I will now begin to code or execute that plan. Step 4, like you don't have to think like that, but just get in that mindset of, okay, I need to make sure I completely understand what the task is or the problem here is. So then I can begin planning it out, and then I can begin to actually do stuff that will help you throughout your life. So yeah, okay. Other questions? Okay. I am now going to show you all then what this looks like in the background with code. So it's a part of your outline of this course is to look at something known as SQL. Some people say SQL now. When I was growing up, everyone always said SQL. Now people correct me sometimes and say, no, it's SQL. I'm still going to call it SQL because that's what we call it forever. I don't know what changed, why people want to call it SQL so bad, but it doesn't matter to me. Anyway, SQL or SQL stands for Structured Query Language. Oh, well, we know what a query is. Structured. I think many of us can understand what it means to be structured, right? To have some kind of order to things, which we see queries do have, right? They have some order to it. And then language. We know what a language is, but why is there a structured query language? Well, the reason there is a structured query language or SQL or SQL is so that you can select from certain tables specific fields that you would like to see, maybe that meet certain criteria and that are sorted in ascending or descending order. Will we be? And yes, you will be using your same access from last week for this week's assignment. And for the week after, so next week's as well. Unless you want it to come down, now you can get it off. Yeah. Use the ones that you have from before, yeah. Because otherwise you would have to start all over and make tables again. Okay, so yes, so the so SQL will allow you to select from certain tables specific fields that you would like to see that meet certain criteria and also are in ascending or descending order. And so you'll notice that there's another view that you get as an option known as SQL View or SQL View, and that structured query language view. And what that will do is it'll allow us to see what is the SQL that's going on in the background to get this query, get this result. So then click on it, and I'm gonna let you guys look at it for a bit, and then I'm gonna kind of walk you through how, just like I did with VBA, how it was easy to kind of decipher what is it actually doing, what does this code mean. I want you to see that with SQL. So, and click on it. And yes, you could go straight to here and type out what you wanted to do. Funny enough, I have a test on this week. Well, it's a little it's not that much more complicated. It's not that SQL is not that complicated to begin with. So, but yeah, I do have a test on using SQL in Python. So those of you that will be taking Python with me next semester will actually be looking at SQL then. But I have a test in my own class on using it, or it's a very small part of my test. But anyway, okay. So, bigger. Does anyone have any trouble seeing this? It's too small. It's a little small. Okay. Make it bigger. And I'm gonna make it a little bigger. Oh, I guess I'm not allowed to make it that much bigger. Apparently this is the best that this guy can do at this point in time. This is on my second monitor. I think that's probably why. So is that better? Those of you that said it was small? This is as big as I can make it at this point. I guess that's not technically true. I could make it even larger. Huh? What I was thinking. There we go. I can make it super big by just copying and pasting and putting it in a notepad. And I can make it less blurry this way too then. Okay, is that better? If not, I can make it larger. So let me know. But I just copy and pasted in Notepad because that way I could change the font without having the screen become a little blurry by changing its layout scale. So notice here it says select, and it says Pokemon Battle Stats dot Pokemon Battle Stats dot type 1. So what it's doing is we're selecting different fields, but these fields are coming from these tables, or in this case, query. So it's coming from the query Pokemon Battle Stats, and we're getting the Pokemon field, the type 1 field, type 2 field, the weakness field. Okay. And it's saying from. So what table are you getting the stuff from? Well, Pokemon, or in this case, it's really a query, Pokemon Battle Stats. So select these fields from here. Honestly, I could have written this with just saying Pokemon type 1, type 2, weakness, battle stats from this one, because it will automatically know that these all have to come from the same query or table as listed here. The reason that this is an option to put the stuff in front is because you can have it say it's coming from multiple places. Just like that, the first query that I showed you, we got from multiple tables, right? So maybe I should show you what that looks like actually in Sql View as well, so you can see that. But here's where our criteria comes into place with a where. So where the base stat coming from this query is greater than 500. Then the last part here, it says order by, so order it by type 1. And if there was a -1 here, or if it said descending, then after this, then it would go in the opposite. So, okay, so that's honestly it. That's honestly it. So you all probably can see from here, you're just selecting what fields you want to see from, what tables is the stuff or queries is it coming from. And if you want to get, that's honestly the basic of all you need. You want to get more specific, you can say, give it special criteria right here, where the field has this thing going on. Ordered by, or order by, what do you want it to, how do you want it to sort? And then, like I said, you can add a -1 or type the word this, or actually it's DESC. You don't type out you don't type out descending, you type in DESC. It'll change it into be descending order. So that's what SQL looks like. It's super simple to read and understand. I know people that literally for a living, all they do is do type things in SQL. So they just work through databases, pulling certain data and creating queries for it. And these can get really complex. They can be, parts inside of other things. You can have certain calculations that are done when this where fill, or how it's presented in the results. You can calculate that as well, make a calculated fill. But this is all they do for their job. And one of them is a good friend of mine. And what she told me that she did was she got into Microsoft Access and she just started building queries, and she just started looking at Sql View to see, okay, how does this look in Sql View? Oh, okay, now I know how to type this in SQL. And that's how she learned SQL. She has a certification in it as well now. Because you can get certification, like pretty much anything in the computer information technology field, you can get a certification for. But she has a certification in it, and she never took a class in SQL. This is literally what she did. She opened up Microsoft Access and she played around with it until she felt comfortable enough with the language. And sometimes she'll like need some new commands, and she'll just look up stuff on YouTube to say, okay, well, how is this done here? But she can understand it, and her understanding came from literally what you all are doing here, just looking at it in the background in Microsoft Access. So I wanted to show you all that to show you that's available. Yeah. Okay. So, perfectly honest with you, that's really it. I will show you all some more things that you can do on Wednesday, maybe, but for now, essentially, this is everything. There's not much else to go through. There's not much else to go through in this section. So, yeah. Yeah. Um, all right. Any questions between anyone? From anyone? I want to show you here. I don't think so.
Bottom, is that how the query will come out?
Say it again.
Of like your screen, is that how the query will come out?
Oh, no, this is design view. So if I go back to data sheet view, this is how it will come out. Yeah, so this is what your results will look like. But let's let's probably take a look at your homework so you can see what is expected of you all. First assignment. Now that you have created a database, we will create a simple query object to display specific information based on a set of criteria. So your assignment, you'll create a query based on one of your tables. So if your tables are linked together, then or if there's a relationship between your tables, that's how you'll be able to pull things from multiple. But it only has to come from at least one of your tables. The query should not contain all your records, so be sure to create a query that will search through the database to return specific results. So the reason I did that was because the first time I did this assignment, I wanted people to like see the real power of a query. And the first time we did this, literally what people did was they just took your table, got all their fields, and ran it. And they're like, okay, that was easy, did it. And when they analyzed the results, they were like, oh, I got all the data from my table. That's not like the real purpose of this. So you can get all your data from your table just by looking at your table, right? So what I want you all to do in your assignment is somehow, some way, there should be some differences that have been made. There should be some criteria added. So for instance, like this, yes, it's been sorted at least in ascending order, but there's some criteria that you could add here. We could look for specifically just bug Pokemon or the fire ones or the water or whatever. We could even say starts with a C. There are a lot of different criteria that we could do in order to reduce the results we see. And so part of your assignment is to do that. I don't want all, like if I see you have a record, you have 10 records, and in your result for your query, I see 10 records. I'm gonna be like, oh, come on. Even if you don't have all the fields included, I'm still gonna like, hey, I want you to, specify it, be more specific with it. That way you get to use that criteria. Because honestly, that's probably that is the most important part of this query. Right? Being able to pull results for certain fields, yes, that is very, very important. And there are times in the real world where you would get every record that you had from a table or from another query. And then later on, maybe get more specific. But for this assignment, I want you to get specific. Even if it only shows one item as a result, or if it shows no items as a result, because of the criteria you have. So, okay. Name your query appropriately based on what it is that you're searching for. How I name mine is battle stats and then battle stats above 500. Be specific about your naming of your query. And then explain in the comment section of Canvas the purpose of your query and how it's useful to you. So for instance, I was looking for Pokemon with high battle stats, so I can take them to battle. You will upload your Microsoft Access database here, just how you did with the other assignments. Your query will be based on your fields you created. So keep it simple and choose wisely. Keep it simple. Choose wisely. So I gave a example here. I could do like the grass type Pokemon query, or I could do the fat Pokemon, like, hey, look for all the Pokemon that weigh more than whatever. So you'll be graded based off that you use access databases for these first two. So that should be a pretty easy 10 points, to be honest. The second thing is there's a query object that's been created. It's 5 points for that. So just creating a query object. An appropriately named query, so appropriately naming it. So based off the results, which I'll look in the comments pretty much to say, this is what the person said they were trying to do, and this is why their results came out like this. And I'll check the name to see if it's appropriate. So if you call your thing fat Pokemon query, but you're looking at the heights, I'm going to be like, no, that's not appropriate. Query does not contain all the records. That's 5 points there. So make sure it doesn't have all the records from your table that it comes from, or the query it comes from, and an explanation of the purpose of the query in the comments. Okay.
So if you don't want us to like put all of our records into our query, is there like a certain amount that we should do?
No, it could be, you could have one less. You could have 0 in your query. Pretty much for that, I'm really just looking to see, did you use criteria in some kind of way?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions? All right. Be perfectly honest with you, seems like you guys, I really do think you guys do get this, and that you're probably like, I already did it now, I'm done, let's move on. So Wednesday I'll show you all some more. I'll show you some more criteria types and some other things that you can do with a query, just so that you guys are aware of it, and then probably move on to forms. To be honest, forms or reports. So yeah, that's my plan at least. We'll see what happens. And if you have specific questions, let me know, of course. Yeah. To be honest with you, that's pretty much it for today. Unless you want me to go on, I can. But I would say at this point in time, you all will be pulling up your Access databases on your computer, and going to town with this. So yeah, make sure you think about what you want to do first for your query. Yes, you can. Think about what you want to do first for your query, and then plan it out. Like, what fields do you need? Are they in certain tables? Because you got 2 tables too, right? Some of you have more than 2 tables. So what fields are you trying to get from? What tables do you need to include? You can make multiple queries if you want. I am going to be looking for one. If you have multiple and the first one didn't have what I needed, I'm going to look at the next one. I'm going to keep going. If you make 12 queries, I have to look at all 12. But yeah, have fun with it. I mean, you saw there's 4 different types that are already in the wizard that you can go from, and think about how many different possibilities you would have there. So you got 4 there times however many different fields you have. Take chosen 1 at a time at minimum, plus 2 at a time, 3 at a time. Like there's like not infinite, because there's just a lot of different types of queries that you can make just based off of your tables that you all had and the number of fields that you had. So, and then from there, how many different criteria could you come up with? So we look at some others later, but some of the one of the criteria that sounds honestly the best, and I think that many of you may take a look at it, but I mentioned like, oh, looking at all the ones that start with the letter C. Now, 1, 2. Do it this way. That's gotta read it. Give me a crash. Let's see. That's literally all it was. I just typed in C. The 2 stars, star in front of it is like a wild card. The star after is another wild card. And what that means is it can be anything in front of this, or it can be anything after this. So literally, this just gave me a result of everything that has the letter C in it. It just happened all there at the beginning. So there's so many different criteria you could use, and combinations of criteria too. Right? Because I can get crazy here and start like, hey, anything above 400 too here. I got all my C's that are above 400. There's so many different criteria references, and I think I actually gave you guys a link in the one right before this. Yeah. Well, yeah, changing references coming from again that GCF Learn Free website. So 3 different ways to do certain criterias. There's a lot in here. So yeah, have fun. Make multiple queries. Make 1 query and go to sleep. Make 1 query and start on the forums and reports. Make 1 query and go back and make up any work that you may have missed. Make 1 query and enjoy your break or working on other homeworks. It's up to you. Yes.
So like, if you're making like a simple query wizard and it asks you like, would you like to detail or summary query? Would you prefer us to do detail because it's more information?
Well, so summary query will do some type of actually, let me just do one real quick so you can see the difference. It's not really that. It's not really. Gonna save it. Ooh. Oh no, I was just playing around with that. I do not want to save that. No. Okay. So yeah, that way you can save. So let's see. Which one did I have before? I was just getting some stuff. So boom, 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 boom. I think this is what I did last time. Right? Yeah. Okay. So let's take a look at the summary one. So I could say I'm gonna get the average one. And count how many Pokemon I have here. So notice that everything's still there. We just get this extra. We get this extra piece here. That's the only difference. Okay, it added that extra count on there at the end. That's what that summary is really there doing. And so even if we look in the background, it says it's grouping by, but this is saying, oh, I'm just taking the average of the base stats. Well, if I look back at my results, this is the actual base stat that we had right at that time. This isn't an average of the base stat. It was an average. It's an average of itself. So this doesn't really help anything. The only reason it would help is if I had multiple Blastoists and I then took the average of theirs. For the queries, do you want us to use the two tables that are the same? You can. Yeah, you can use just one of those tables. You could. So with a query, you can use any tables and any queries that are already created. So if you want to, like someone said, they want to make multiple queries. If you want to make multiple queries and then do the one that you use for your final like query for the actual assignment is a query of those queries, that's fine with me. If you want to do it off of just one of the tables, that's fine as well. If you want to do it off of based off the relationship that you have created within the two tables, kind of similar to what I did here in the example, that would be great too. I would think that would work out best as long as you have at least a one-to-many or one-to-one relationship. That way, some things will actually be connected and you'll actually get them in your results. If you get no results, do not panic. Try to figure out why. And I had people, that was 2 semesters ago. I had a lot of people that did things with like athletes because there's not a general direct connection between athletes, right? Like, even if you have the same number, you may be at different positions, or even if you're at the same position, there's a lot of different things that happen or differences between you. And so what they did was when they did their query, they had many to many relationships. And then when they did their query, they had no results because they had nothing truly in common. And they were very upset. And I was like, what are you upset about? It's like, oh, it's not going to work. And I realized it's not going to work because of my tables, how they set up. I have to start all over. I was like, why do you have to start all over? What did you just learn? That my query needs to be able to actually pull results that will be related. So if I'm using multiple tables, they need to be related. Okay, good. Put that in your explanation. You're done. So because all this is really just about you learning what these are for and how to use them. And so she learned a valuable lesson about queries. And she didn't have to go back and redo her whole assignment. But yeah. So back to Chantel's question, you can use summary if you like. If you feel like detail is better, because looking at this here, we added in this count, and the average didn't help because there was no two things the same. Your data may be different. It may be useful for you to do a sum of things or an average, or maybe not. Fully up to you.
Also, can we also pick more than one field, right? To add, like more than one query to put in our field from like one table?
Yes, you can pick more than one field to add to your query, and you can pick more than one table to add to it too if you like. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, you got 15 minutes. Honestly, I'm pretty sure. Well, okay, it looks like some of you actually have already turned it in since class started. So yeah, you got 15 minutes. I suggest using this 15 minutes to have some fun with it. I feel like you guys are really, really enjoying this database thing, which is great. Be quite honest with you, this is pretty much like having at least a basic understanding of a database, how it works, will be very important for your future because everything is data driven. So every company that you work for is going to need to have some kind of understanding of data. And the more that you know now, and then the better you will serve yourself and your company. There's so many jobs that are popping up. I remember when I graduated from college, and then I was looking at when I was wanting to stop teaching high school, and I was really trying to move back to Atlanta. I think I mentioned this at some point in the class. I had a job offer. It was before big data was big, where it was like a buzzword. It's not as big as a buzzword now, but it's still out there because everyone understands the need of data. But I'll tell you, I won't tell you what the company was, but I had a job offer to literally to track people's receipts from a major company. And what would happen then, well, the idea was I would connect it to an app. And so that when people, or it will connect to an app, I didn't have to technically do that, but it would give an alert when you walk back in that store based off your previous purchases. And then it would give you coupons. based off your previous purchases, so that you could then, like as soon as you walk in a store, and so you would expect a phone, a text, or an app notification if you have your notifications on. If you didn't have your notifications on, it would also go to your email, and it would give you special ones. And so the example we had was, you just bought a saw last week. Hey, how about you get some replacement blades now for 15% of the actual cost? And I backed out of it because I was like, that's way too creepy. You imagine in the background, someone's programmed something, and like in me knowing it was me that did it, I was like, no, I can't walk into a store knowing that I created this monster that tracks everything that you've purchased and then tries to give you coupons. However, they're doing it now anyway, but you guys don't get text messages though. That was the idea at that point in time. But you do get, mail, right? Where it's like, hey, I think I told you all the story. It was a couple of weeks ago. I think I told you that story about the Target guy with the Target and his daughter. He found out his daughter was pregnant because Target kept sending them stuff that was leaning towards some certain items, and then eventually towards baby items. So Target knew she was pregnant before she was, and also knew she was sexually active before the dad did. So yeah, it gets kind of, it does get creepy of what they're capable of, but at least they're not texting you directly when you enter a store. So, but anyway, that what I said all that because it is very important in business, and everyone, no matter what you do, you're working at a business, and so having an understanding of what's going on with this is gonna help you in the long run. It just will. So, and there's new jobs, new degrees based off of doing data science or data analytics or how do you use this, and people have been doing this stuff for years, but it's just become more prevalent and people realize it can be used in everything and not just in the stock market or marketing. It can be used in literally everything. So yeah, cool. All right, well, 11 minutes on the clock. Guys, have fun making your queries. Someone else just turned it. All right. So yeah, I guess I'll stop talking unless you guys have any other questions. I know some people have some private questions, but okay. Yeah. You all have a great day. You don't have to stick around if you want to. If you want to, go ahead. I know some of you have some questions that you want to ask privately, so feel free to stay behind. Yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing now then, and then I will stop recording.
Have a good day.
You too.